Who's in the mix after week 6? We're now over halfway through the Commander Draft Tournament, and it's time to start thinking about playoffs. All the highlights and more coming up on episode 6 of PokeCentre, which starts right now. It's time to take a bite out of that citrus berry because we got a lot of juicy content for you in this episode of PokeCentre. Episode 6 covering week 6 in the Commander Draft Tournament. Another huge week, just like all the weeks we've had so far, but now we're getting even more into the grind, even deeper into this tournament. Looking ahead, we're over halfway through, and now it's all about the playoffs and who's going to be in the playoffs and how things are shaping up. These next few weeks are going to be so pivotal to everybody's game coming up. My name is Douglas Evans, and I'm joined as always by my host, Calvin Rowat. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm really excited to talk about this week's content.
Oh yeah, we got a lot of great highlights to get into. We're going to get into those in just a few moments. But just like every other week, we're going to start by talking about the trades. And a lot of trades happened this week. It was a busy Monday for everyone making trades. We'll start off in the Shield division. Brian traded a Tier 5 Per Ugly for a Savali Steel. What do you think of that trade, Calvin?
Well, I think Perugly was a really cool Pokemon to have on this team. It was a deterrent for Sticky Web and Intimidate, but that doesn't seem to be really prevalent in this tournament. So I think the Savali Steel was a good trade because it offers him that great Steel typing, and Savali has a huge move pool, great pivoting options. It's honestly so slappable on any team, so I think it's a positive for him.
Nice, and it's also worth noting that was Brian's final trade for this season. That was his third and final trade, so hopefully he's happy with the trades he made, and now it's all in his hands for the next few weeks to make the best of it. Keeping things moving here, we also have Ross in the Shield division, also made his third and final trade as well. He traded a Tier 5 Sandslash for Behem. Excuse me. Calvin, what do you make of that trade?
Yeah, so Ross's team has had a switch of kind of direction. You can see before he was going more for a balanced style team. He's still keeping the bulk aspect of his team, but now he's switching more to momentum-based bulk. So a lot of pivoting. And I think that Behem has a really cool trick up its sleeve. And not just Trick Room, which it is extremely great at, but Teleport. Such a great move in a tournament like this, and not many Pokemon get access to it. We have the Slowking, but that's a Tier 3. This is a Tier 5 Pokemon with that move. I think that's a very cool tech, and I give Ross props for figuring that out. So this trade gets a plus for me.
Awesome. Keeping things going here, we also have Chris, also in Shield division, and he made all 3 of his trades yesterday. So this is like all of his trades coming up here, and he's got no trades left, so we'll run through them all one by one. So he traded a Tier 4 Frostmoth for Articuno. Let's start with that one, Calvin.
Yeah, so a common aspect of all his trades is slower, bulkier Pokemon going to faster and more offensive Pokemon, and this first one really articulates that. They're pretty much the same role, Frostmoth and Articuno. Bulky, ice types. They both have 4 times weaknesses, but Articuno is faster, and that's basically it. I think Articuno is just a little bit more offensive. It doesn't necessarily need the Quiver Dance to get moving, but Frostmoth had a lot of good positives with Quiver Dance and such. It's just a change in the team's direction, so I'm neutral on this trade.
All right, well, on to his second trade. He also traded his Tier 4 Runerigus for Delphox. What do you make of that one?
So this one is, it's a tough sell for me. He loses out on Toxic Spikes and Stealth Rocks, which Runerigus both had, and Trick Room option in favor of Delphox with its base 104 speed, which does help with his speed issue that has been a major problem on his team. But like I said, now that he's lacking the hazards, it's going to be pretty predictable as to who has them. Cough, cough, Miltank. But maybe Delphox's offensive, dual stab, psychic, and fire can overwhelm his opponents to the point where it won't matter. So I'll go with a neutral.
And for his final trade, he traded a Tier 5 Combuskin for a Primeape. Your thoughts?
Once again, neutral. Combuskin, slower, more methodical in its setup because it gets speed boost. Primeape, harder hitting immediately, faster immediately. Just a change of direction. I like how it's got the Defiant, and it's a pretty cool Tier 5 pick. We'll see what he makes of it. And honestly, I do agree with his strategy overall in making these trades. I think it's do or die at this point for Chris. So good on him for trying to make the changes necessary.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question to you, but you just answered it right there. It's like he really went all in. He's got no trades left, and he really just leaves it in his hands for the next few weeks to try to get himself in a better position and hopefully get into that playoff spot and hopefully has some success with it as well. So, and our final trade of the week, my boy Blade. He got it right this week. There was no Tuesday at 2:43 in the morning. He got it on the Monday, just in line with everybody else. And he traded a Tier 5 Lot Bunny for a Masquerain. What do you think of that trade, Calvin?
Well, he traded away Lot Bunny, which is great because his team has so much type overlap and role overlap that it's so easy to prep against him. Now, he's still getting a little type overlap, which I'm a little shaky on, but he's getting some new typing in there with the Flying Bug type. And Masquerain has a lot to offer his team that's unique and different than all the other members. Masquerain has Intimidate, it has Sticky Webs, and it has Quiver Dance. All really cool, unique options. His team doesn't have a lot of just setup options like that. And I think the Sticky Web is going to make it so that some of his middle-of-the-road speed Pokemon, like base 80 speed Gallade, is going to become much more threatening if the majority of the opponent's Pokemon speed is lowered under the Sticky Web. I think, honestly, this is a all-around positive trade, and I hope Blade looks into some more in the future.
Yeah, well, I have all the faith in the world in Blade, and I'm sure he's going to make this trade into a positive one. He's going to come into that Sword Division, do some damage in the remaining weeks of this tournament. That's it for the trades this week, and I think it's time to get into those highlight packages. What do you think, Calvin?
Yeah, let's jump right into it.
All right, we got a lot of action coming up, and let's get right into it right now. Starting off this week in the Shield Division, we're going to kick things off with Chris taking on Connor Peterson. And in watching this match, we're going to see that Chris does a great job with the Frostmoth, and actually is going to be really critical to him picking up a gigantic win this week. Really makes me wonder why he was so quick to get rid of it in the trade in favor of the Articuno, but I'm sure that's him thinking ahead and he's planning for the weeks to come, but still was just awesome to see how dominant he was with this Frostmoth in this match. What do you think about this, Calvin?
Yeah, Connor's really proven to struggle with setup sweepers like this Pokemon here. His speed tiering and his hazing options or phasing is really limited, and Chris pointed that out and exploited it perfectly here. Really cool to see such a low tier Pokemon like this have a high level of success. Hopefully we can see Chris take this momentum and carry it forward in the next weeks to come.
Keeping the action going here, next up we got Norman taking on Ross.
And what an exciting match this was. Turn 1, Ambipom's going to knock off the Hoopa, getting Ross a nice early kill. But Norman's not going to falter under the pressure. He's going to bring in Scrafty, and he's going to start setting up right away. Gets a good Dragon Dance off, and this Rotom is not taking it at all. Boom, it goes down. Okay, looks like Ross is in a bad position here. But he's got the Choice Scarf Passimian. Already, this trade has proven its worth right here. But Norman's not quitting. He's got the sticky webs out, and Articuno has set up. Ross goes for a Moonblast, but it actually works against him, boosting with competitive on the Articuno. Things are looking pretty sour for Ross. Mind you, he's going to get a little luck here on this next turn. He's going to be able to get the Toxic off. Now, I'm a little confused why Norman was going for Air Slashes and didn't immediately start going for Stored Powers. Maybe because the Registeel wasn't in kill range of the Stored Power. Regardless, Articuno's not going to go out without taking down some Pokemon with him, and it's actually going to net a couple kills here. This is a really cool set. I'm glad to see it's actually putting work in this game. This turn here, I'm a little confused. I think Ross forgot about the Sticky Web or something. Just bam, Passimian is slower. I think this was a silly turn. He could have gone Ambipom and faked out the turn prior, and the Articuno would have succumbed to the poison, saving his differential. Regardless, Ross is able to net the win, and he gets out of here with a +3 victory.
And up next, we got Brian taking on Zeb. And right out the gate here, Zeb's going to come in with the Electrode, going to go for the taunt, but things are not going to go his way. This Torkoal is just going to attack. It's coming for blood, and it looks like Zeb's on the ropes right in the beginning moments of this match.
Yeah, and he would save that Electrode for later, which I think was a great play. But then at this point, Zeb's going to make another mistake by misclicking and going for Flare Blitz against Torkoal. Things are just not looking good for him. And then the Gastrodon's going to come in, but luckily, Brian makes an over-prediction with the Ice Beam, and because Sticky Hold doesn't lower the knockoff damage, Incineroar is actually going to be able to take out the Gastrodon, which is really cool and clutch. Now at this point, this is why Electrode was smart to save it. It's able to go for the Rain Dance against the Houndoom. This means that no matter what, Torterra will live a Flamethrower. Forces a switch into Torkoal, and that one turn, Torterra gets to set up a Rock Polish, and boom, what was looking like a 3-0 victory for Brian turns into a late game Torterra sweep and a 1-0 victory for Zeb. Honestly, I loved how perfectly he played this endgame. I think that's the tell of a really smart player. Really great game by both players. I love matches like these that just come right down to the wire and really show how players are, thinking about their game plans and their end games so thoroughly. Loved it.
Next on the docket, it's Robin taking on Simon.
Simon's going to continue the trend of wacky Bronzong sets. This week, it's Trick Black Sludge. Didn't really end up paying off for him too well, but I'm glad to see that he's stepping out of his comfort zone to keep things interesting at the very least. Robin himself would try to keep things interesting with this counter Meganium. Wow. Every week something new with these guys. Really cool. And, well, it was all fun and games, but at the end of the day, Robin knew what was good against Simon, and he was going to abuse it. Swords Dance for Alligator was inevitably going to put in the work against Simon's sand-heavy team.
Yeah, and Simon's got no choice at the end. He's got to bring in the Stoutland, but it's not going to pay off for him like it did last week. Robin's just got the full 6 in the back, and he's going to get the clean sweep and the big 6-0 win. Up next, we got Jonas taking on Laurel. And as we'll see in the early stages of this match, Laurel's nerves are kind of getting the best of her. Jonas is an intimidating player to play against, and rightfully so. He's done, obviously, perfection in the tournament so far, and she's kind of showing that she's maybe setting herself up to get swept by him, and it's not looking good for her in the start of this match here.
Yeah, she definitely struggled a lot. However, there was some good decision-making on her point. She was able to get the Toxic Spikes out, which would pressure him later game. But Jonas himself would actually make a mistake. He actually didn't have the Flame Body on his Moltres, which was highly amusing. But it inevitably didn't change much for him in that aspect. Now, after taking a lot of lost Pokemon after a early Arctozolt sweep, Laurel finally decides to get the Magmortar out. The problem with this is you're already 4 Pokemon down. Magmortar is a wall breaker that, as you can see, forced a KO and is forcing damage. This is a Pokemon that needs to be played early to mid-game, not late game. So it's great that it's doing damage here. You can see Jonas is switching around trying to preserve differential, and that's exactly what you want Magmortar to do, is to pressure those switches. But too little, too late. What Laurel needs at this point is a hope, a dream, and a lot of hacks. And, well, she's going to get a lot of hacks, actually, in her favor. She's going to get this Noivern in, and she's going to get 3 Air Slash flinches in a row. But unfortunately, Lady Luck is only so kind. This final Air Slash flinch that she needed on the Auroras, she's not going to get. And Jonas is going to wipe that brow of sweat off his forehead and be thankful that he was able to skim by on this one.
Ending things off this week in the Shield Division, it's a huge match here with Jared taking on Reggie. This is a big time match in the division, 2 heavyweights going at it. Really thought action would be coming in out of the gate, but for me, I was like, not a lot going on here. 40 turns, a methodical pace. It really felt like the opening few rounds of a big UFC main event fight where a feeling out process was going on for the first 40 turns of this match. Finally turned 41, we get into the action. Calvin, let's go.
And Jared would be the first one to pull the trigger with a risky play. Switches in the Basculin on the Steelix, which could have gone for an offensive move to knock it out, but he didn't. It would be at turn 58 after Jared would start to lose some ground on Pokemon, where he would pull the trigger again to bring the Mess Spirit in to revive the Basculin, and that would force kills against Reggie. This would put Reggie in the position where he had to start playing more aggressive with his offense, and this is where Jared would regain traction by forcing the Sceptile and Noctowl matchup, and things just went downhill. Jared broke down the walls, Reggie couldn't sustain it much longer, and at the end here, Jared was able to bring in the Regirock, set up Iron Defenses, and knock out these last few Pokemon. I think this was, like Douglas said, a very methodical match. Both these players took it slow in the early game, but I think Jared was the one who took the risks earlier on, and I think that's what paid off in this match. I think Reggie played a little too safe, and it's what got him the loss, and the loss of his undefeated streak here.
Yeah, Reggie's first loss of the season, and a big win for Jared. A great game. Alright, slap HM1 on that Eradicate. Let's cut into these Sword Division matches. We're going to kick things off with Florian taking on Joshua. And Josh, I don't know if you've been listening to Calvin the past few weeks, but something has got to change with this team, and another loss at the hand of a Fairy type. You're getting your ass kicked by these Fairy types. Come on, man. Change it up.
We hate to have to dwell on it every single week, but we really want you to get past this problem so you can start making strides towards getting your first big win of the season. Until that's addressed, these problems, you're just going to keep having this same outcome every week.
Let's keep things going. Up next, it's Lewis taking on William. And William's been really impressive thus far in the tournament with this Metagross. It's been top of the kill leaderboard the last few weeks, but he's going to lose it early on in this match. Not the best use of it this week.
I feel like both players were a little off this week, especially Lewis. Not having coverage for the Go-Goat was really strange. But hey, I guess the Go-Goat worked out for William, who was able to stop the Blastoise sweep. Camera up here would be able to would have been able to take a hit, but it was too low in the health. So this Passimian's actually going to be a major threat in this game. But as you can see, Kadabra is also going to be a threat. But William's going to make a misplay here. Instead of going into the Boltund, he goes into the Go-Go. And I think this is a major mistake. Because Volbeat is able to take any hit from it, U-turn out, and bring in the Passimian again. This Pokemon's a huge threat, and it's just going to collect this, another kill here for free. And this puts William in a major problem position. But William's actually going to get incredibly lucky with a Thunder Fang, which is going to paralyze Passimian and give him a get out of jail free card there. And just to rub some salt in on the burn there, he's going to crit the Volbeat at the end to just barely skim by with a win.
And up next, it's my personal highlight every week. It's my boy Blade taking on Sean. Now, I gotta be honest, though, this is another tough week for me to watch Blade, and I don't think I can really say too much about it. Calvin, why don't you just talk about this?
Sure thing. Well, Sean's able to get the nice early KO there with the basculin. And honestly, yeah, this game's just going to go really well for Sean, especially with the Saudino. Calm Mind, puts in a lot of work. But he actually underestimates this Inteleon, who's able to get a crit with Snipe Shot there and almost take it out. The closest Blade would get in taking out a Pokemon in this game. With some smart switches, Sean's able to secure the 6-0 win, which he desperately needs if he wants to somehow get himself back into the playoff picture. How does this 6-0 loss feel for you, Douglas?
Awful. Just awful. And up next, it's Hayden taking on Vikram. Another week of things not going Hayden's way, and sure enough, he's going to get salty yet again.
Yeah, and you can kind of see why, I guess. He's going to have his Slowking taken out turn 1 by the Samurott there, which was Choice Banded. If it was a max defense Slowking, it would have been able to deal with it just fine. But it was snowball this game out of control, and he would make weird plays like Thunder Waving when he should have body pressed. Would have taken out the Flygon there, or even just gotten chip on a lot of these Pokemon. I think he just played really passively and weird. Didn't really take too many, risky plays, especially when he's playing from the back. He'd get kind of lucky here with the 3 protects in a row, which is kind of cool to see. But as you can see, the salt would begin to flow, and Hayden would start to lambaste Vikram for his cheesy sets. Honestly, though, as I kind of pointed out, I think Hayden played a little weird, prepped a little weird. So maybe if he had brought a more optimized team with an optimized plan, well, those cheesy sets really wouldn't have worked out, and Hayden may have come out of this with a victory instead.
Next up, it's Connor West taking on Paul.
So Paul's not going to try anything new here today, but what he is going to do is going to work out well, especially with this Curse Muck set. Now, I think Connor thought he was going to be safe with the Reflect and such, but unfortunately, that Muck's carrying Brick Break, and it's just going to be able to get rid of the Reflect and take out the Mr. Mime really easily. Honestly, Shadow Sneak on Muck is actually a really cool tech. It is really going to be what really annoys Connor here. I think Connor had lots of good coverage options and power to take on the Muck, but the problem is Muck is just so bulky, and after 2 curses, there's just no way he's going to be able to take it out with one single hit. And as we see here, this Muck takes out like 3 entire Pokemon solo, and it's just going to be way too much for Connor to bounce back from, even though he's able to eventually take it out with the Darmanitan here. I will give Connor props though, especially with the Carbank. I was actually really impressed. For a tier 5 Pokemon, it's like a mini Deontay with its rock fairy coverage, which was cool at hurting the Tornadus and even taking out the Scrappy here. Just a little point I thought was really cool about this match. But inevitably, the Darmanitan was not scarfed, so it was not going to be able to sweep. Even if it was scarfed, it didn't have enough HP. So this is just going to turn out to be a good win for Paul.
In our main event this week, it's my co-host Calvin taking on Matthew, 2 undefeated players.
And right off the bat, no punches are being held. Focus Sash Houndoom was a huge threat to my team, but I got the lead right with the Tauros, so I'm able to get a nice early kill off right off the bat. Matt's biggest threat to me was this Mesprit, his Calm Mind. At the time, I thought I could handle it, but he would reveal the horrible sleep talk nature of it. So I ended up having to sack Pokemon, but I was able to leave it at a low HP to revenge kill. This would be Matt's downfall. If he had rested and saved it for a later point, it could have continued to harass and collect kills. Now I was able to actually tank a Draco Meteor from a Noivern with the Sea King and get an Ice Beam freeze. The freeze really did suck for Matt, and it would allow the Sea King to just continue to harass his team. The bulk on this thing is deceptive, and it was just able to knock off and get really nice chip damage, ensure there's no choice scarfs or no sub setup opportunities. And even though King would go down after taking a real beating. It left Salazzle open to outspeed and easily kill everything. Nice cheeky weakness policy set right there. Didn't have to reveal what I actually was holding off in the back there, so I'm glad. But yeah, it was a really fun match, and I don't really want to replay Matthew Heater in playoffs because he might learn from this loss. But if we do, I'm sure it'll be a great match.
It is that time now to get into the standings, looking at how things are shaping up after week 6 of competition here at the Commander Draft Tournament. And as we can see now, there are only 2 undefeated players left in the entire league. Of course, Calvin picked up a big win over Matthew, handing him his first loss, and Jonas is still undefeated while Reggie took his first loss on the Shield side of things. Still, we're seeing a decent amount of spread on the Sword side with Calvin, Florian, Matthew, and William kind of pretty comfortable in their top 4 spots, but you got Vikram in there in 5th place as well. And on the Shield side, we're starting to see a pretty good spread there. Of course, you got Jonas is pretty comfortable in number 1 spot, but when you start going through 2 all the way into the 7th and 8th position, really that's where a lot of unpredictability can happen in the weeks to come. And Calvin, what are your thoughts on what you see with the standings here?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with a lot of what you said there. It's really interesting taking a look at some of these. The people that are in playoffs have been, kind of in the picture for a while now, but it's the players that are outside of the picture that are most interesting to me. A lot of these players have had a lot of their tougher matches already earlier in the season, and now maybe they'll have more desirable matchups, and maybe they can actually fight to get a spot in playoffs. Look at someone like Laurel. She's already fought Jonas, Reggie, Robin, and Jared. So she could just win all her matches and boom, she's in playoffs maybe, right? Same with someone like Sean, who's already fought really strong players like Flo, William, and Matthew. Sean can have a huge turnaround. Hell, he already had a 6-0 win this week. It's really interesting to me to see, on the Sword side, Sean's got 3 wins. Same with Connor. Even Paul he just took a really strong win this week. These guys are all still in that playoff conversation. Anything can happen. Anyone can fall from the top 4 and go down. These guys can hop back up. And like you said, Shield is a little bit more spread out. A lot more people are in that conversation. Heck, you even got Simon, Chris with the 2 wins. Anything can happen, right? Laurel, Ross, Zeb, and Jared. That's the difference there. Is the 4th spot is a 4-2 instead of a 5-1 like in Sword. So it's really cool to see that not so much of a landslide. A lot of these top people are only just having their tough matches at this point in the season.
Yeah, like you said, speaking of tough matches, we got a lot of big matches coming up for week 7 in competition. Let's take a look at some of the key ones that we got coming up for this week. And every week going forward, we talked about it earlier in this episode, and it's really crunch time when it comes to this tournament. Every week we inch closer and closer to the playoffs, and these matches become even more and more important than they already were. It's every win, every differential, every Pokemon that you can save to get that differential up is just going to become more and more important as we get into the closing weeks of this tournament here. But looking ahead to next week, a big match on the Sword side of things. It's a sibling rivalry. It's you, Calvin, taking on your brother William. What do you think going into that match?
Well, if we're looking at last season, William was actually able to defeat me for the first time in NCPL history. Traditionally, I've always had a upper hand against him, but he's definitely really advanced as a player. He's now sitting at as a B rank. Honestly, if this tournament is anything to show, he is a top contender. His only loss was by a -1 differential against Florian, who's in the number 2 seed. So now I gotta fight him. He's got an arguably better team than he did in the last season when I've faced him. So it's going to be a really interesting one and one to keep your eyes on.
Absolutely, I agree. I can't wait to see who comes out on top of that, and hopefully maybe William will be the one to hand you your first loss this season. Who knows?
Hopefully not.
We'll see. Jumping over to the Shield side of things, a lot of interesting big matches on Shield. I know you were telling me earlier about Laurel and Ross. Why are you so excited about that one?
I'm excited because these are 2 long-term members of the NCPL. Laurel is a founding member. Ross joined us halfway through Season 1. And, these 2 have always kind of had almost like an unspoken rivalry. Like, they've always been close in the standings. At certain points, Laurel's been higher. At certain... recently, Ross has been higher. And it's been really cool to kind of see their clashes. They're usually really close, good games. And even just looking at the standings, like they're, 6th and 7th place. I think it's going to be a really cool game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Let's look, and looking at the Shield matches, we got 2 really huge matches here. We got literally the top 4 players in those positions. They're all battling each other next week. Starting with Robin taking on Reggie. A huge match. 2nd and 3rd place going at it. What are your thoughts on that match?
Yeah, like you said, it doesn't get any bigger than this. I think Robin is a great player. Reggie also is a really underrated player. His rank does not really equate to how he is as a player. This tournament, he's done really well for himself. If we're looking team versus team, I think Reggie has the advantage. Reggie's got a really powerhouse of a team, whereas Robin's team is good, but it's got some issues, which we're not going to expose. But yeah, that'll be a really great one to watch, and very impactful in the standings.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of impactful in the standings, another, like I said, all the top 4 seeds are playing against each other. We also have Jonas going up against Jared, and now Jared's chance and opportunity to hand Jonas his first loss. And you've mentioned before that Jared plays very well in these lower tiers, and maybe this is his chance to hand Jonas that loss, and he might be the one that's well equipped to do it. What do you think?
Well, as someone who has been able to stand toe-to-toe with Jonas in the past and actually be able to, compete with him at an equal level, you have to have some guts when you're playing him. You have to play smart. You have to predict almost near perfectly, and you have to stay one step ahead. Most importantly, you have to take risks. And I can't think of anyone more willing to take risks than Jared is. Even if you look at Season 5, when Jared had missed the draft and he just picked up leftovers, had a horrible team. He was competing with Jonas, who had arguably one of the greatest teams we've ever seen in the history of our group. Jared was competing with him. He was, making hard predictions and staying competitive. In this tournament, in this season, they're more on equal playing fields as far as the teams are concerned. Sure, the standings reflect that Jared, isn't always top notch, and Jonas is showing he's almost as perfect as you can be. But I think Jared's one of the few people that will actually try to take the risk and try to predict Jonas and to stay one step ahead of his, all-encompassing game plan. So it's going to be a really great one to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really looking forward to that match, and really all these matches that we just talked about. Another match that I want to bring up that's a little interesting, maybe not necessarily from a marquee standpoint, but looking at the standings earlier and seeing how things are shaping up. Also on Shield's side, it's Zeb going up against Norman. Like I said, not really a huge marquee match, but a very important match for Zeb. Right now, Zeb is sitting in the 5th position. He's got a 4-2 record with a +1 differential. And we've seen things have not really been going Norman's way in this tournament so far, so this is a perfect opportunity for Zeb. We got the top 4 players in Shield battling it out, trying to cut each other's heads off here, and here's little Zeb just sitting off to the side that can easily slide into one of those top 4 spots while all these other guys are going out for each other. What do you think of that?
I agree. let the Giants fight and, take out what's left over. Zeb's got nothing to lose here. Norman's all but given up in this tournament from the looks of it. He hasn't made any trades and doesn't seem like he's even bringing different sets. So I think Zeb can really take advantage of that, get a high differential win, and, his gain is going to be great. If Jared takes a loss, boom, Zeb's immediately ahead of him. Same with if Robin takes a loss or Reggie takes a loss, he can potentially be tying with those guys. And if Jonas takes a loss, same thing. Mind you, his differential is much higher and grants him that buffer point. But you see what I'm saying, right? He's got the chance to get into the playoff spot, which is really cool to see for a really unknown player in the NCPL.
Yeah, and I think just looking at Zeb's game, we saw him in week 1, and he took a tough loss against Jonas, and I think this is just a player that's really turned it around since then, and shown that he is a really strong player and can pick up some good wins, and this is a perfect opportunity for him to do just that, pick up probably the most important win of his career so far in the NCPL. Really important for him coming up this week. Well, that's going to do it for us here on episode 6 of PokeCentre. I want to thank everyone so much for tuning in. Be sure to stick around and watch the Game of the Week. Game of the Week this week is Calvin against Matthew from the Sword Division. It was a huge match. They both were undefeated. It was, at the time, the number 1 and 2 seed in those divisions going at it. It was a big-time main event, heavyweight feel to it, and it really lived up to the anticipation and expectations of that match. And I know, obviously, Calvin, you were pretty happy with the result of that, so I'm sure you're not upset to see your match get Game of the Week and see yourself in the top of the standings this week. But again, stick around, stay tuned for that, and that's going to do it for us here. Your Pokemon have rested up, and we hope to see you soon.